Welcome back, and thank you for tuning in to Midnight Affairs Tales. We appreciate every single one of you. We'd love to know what part of the world you are watching from right now. Let us know in the comments. Now let's dive into today's story, Chapter 1. Wedding the evening sun cast golden hues over Crescent Bay, glinting off the calm waves rolling gently onto the shore. Lucas Monroe adjusted his crisp navy uniform, pausing at his reflection in the polished window of his car. His heart raced, anticipation humming through his veins. 10 years of marriage was no small milestone, and tonight, he planned to remind Danielle exactly why she'd chosen him all those years ago. Stepping inside their elegant two-story home, Lucas immediately sensed something off. Flowers lay scattered on the floor, roses he hadn't ordered. The sound of hushed voices floated from the kitchen, urgent and strained. Curiosity tightened into suspicion as he moved silently toward the doorway. Through the crack, he saw Danielle speaking anxiously into her phone, her voice trembling. "No, Oliver, you promised me. We agreed we'd wait until Lucas's pension kicks in. Rushing this could ruin everything." Lucas felt his blood run cold. His heartbeat thundered painfully loud. His fists clenched so tight they trembled. "Oliver? Oliver Grayson, their close friend?" Danielle's voice softened dangerously. "Trust me, Oliver. Lucas suspects nothing. After tonight, we're so close to finally being free." Lucas stepped back, rage and disbelief surging. His perfect marriage, his life, unraveled in seconds. The anniversary surprise now felt bitter, mocking his love. He steadied himself against the wall, breathing sharply, eyes narrowing in the dim hallway. One painful question gripped his heart. How deep did her betrayal truly run? "Wait, I need to tell you something important. Have you ever realized that you keep watching my videos but haven't subscribed yet? This video has reached this point, which means you're enjoying it. So why not subscribe? I have a big goal, 3,000 subscribers, and you can help me reach it. Think about it. If you don't subscribe now, you might miss my next big video. This is the moment. Hit that subscribe button now. Do it now. And don't forget to hit the bell icon so you never miss out. I know you'll do it. And when we hit 3,000 subscribers, I have a special surprise for you." Now, let's continue story. Lucas hid his emotions expertly behind a carefully practiced smile as Danielle approached him, her emerald dress shimmering under the soft lighting. Her expression was flawlessly affectionate, yet Lucas now recognized the subtle mask behind her charming eyes. "You're home early," she said warmly, planting a kiss on his cheek. "What's wrong, Lucas? You seem tense." "Just tired," he lied effortlessly, forcing himself to relax. Every nerve in his body screamed betrayal, but he couldn't afford to show his hand yet. "How was your day?" Danielle hesitated briefly, glancing away. Her fingers twisted subtly at the edge of her dress. Lucas studied every tiny detail of her reaction, storing them away like ammunition. "It was busy. Preparing for tonight," she finally responded. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Lucas nodded, maintaining the facade. They ate quietly, the clinking of cutlery filling the silence. The elegant candlelit dinner he'd meticulously planned now tasted like ash, every bite choking him with the reality of her lies. Midway through, Danielle excused herself briefly, leaving her phone unattended. Lucas's pulse quickened. With swift, precise movements, he picked it up, glimpsing a series of texts from Oliver. "Is it done yet?" one read urgently. Lucas returned the phone just as Danielle walked back, oblivious. The message burned itself into his mind, solidifying his suspicions into painful certainty. He swallowed down his fury, choosing patience over confrontation. Danielle smiled softly across the table, unaware she was already caught in Lucas's web of carefully controlled rage. Lucas had barely slept, his mind tormented by visions of Danielle's betrayal. By morning, he transformed his rage into cold determination. He would discover every secret she held, dismantling her web piece by piece. Over breakfast, Danielle laughed lightly, pouring coffee as if nothing had changed. Her ease startled him. Was she truly this confident, or simply a masterful liar? Oliver called earlier, she mentioned casually. "He wants us to join him for dinner tomorrow." Lucas nodded calmly. "Sounds good." Inside, he was seething, wondering how long they'd both played him for a fool. Each smile Danielle offered felt insulting, fueling his silent wrath. Later that day, Lucas quietly accessed their financial accounts, discovering shocking transfers, small, subtle withdrawals slowly bleeding their savings dry. His chest tightened painfully, realizing Danielle's deception wasn't just emotional. She intended to destroy everything he'd worked for. At that moment, Lucas understood fully the depth of her betrayal. She hadn't just broken their marriage vows, she'd planned to ruin his entire life. But he would not allow her to win so easily. With deliberate calmness, he closed the accounts and began documenting every transaction, every lie. Lucas leaned back, a dark smile forming. Danielle believed she controlled the game, but Lucas knew better. He'd remain patient, silent, deadly. Because Danielle wasn't prepared for what came next, and Lucas would savor every moment until she was brought down completely. Lucas parked discreetly across the street from Oliver Grayson's luxury apartment complex, heart hammering, adrenaline sharpening his senses. Shadows crawled across the building as night deepened, and Lucas waited patiently, his gaze fixed intently on Oliver's third-floor window. Finally, Danielle appeared, her familiar figure silhouetted behind thin curtains. Lucas felt his heart twist painfully in his chest. It was true, painfully, undeniably true. They embraced, intimately comfortable, the very image of betrayal. Lucas tightened his grip on the steering wheel until his knuckles whitened. Rain began pelting the windshield, blurring the scene, echoing the chaos in Lucas's heart. Yet he forced himself to watch, cataloging every detail. When Danielle kissed Oliver, Lucas turned away briefly, nauseous, anger boiling deep inside his veins. Breathing slowly, Lucas collected himself. He refused to lose control. Impulsiveness would only serve Danielle. He snapped photographs quietly, carefully capturing proof of their infidelity. A shadowy figure passed by, startling Lucas. A homeless man knocked gently at the window, offering a cautious smile. Lucas opened the window slightly, handing over spare change without breaking his watchful silence. "You all right, sir?" the stranger asked softly, eyes filled with unexpected compassion. Lucas nodded curtly, swallowing the rage burning his throat. Just realizing how deadly trust can be. The man moved away, puzzled, leaving Lucas alone with bitter truth. His marriage was a deadly illusion. As Danielle and Oliver laughed warmly behind the glowing window, Lucas vowed silently. Their betrayal would cost them everything. The early morning sun filtered through clouds, reflecting softly off the calm harbor waters. Lucas stood at the pier, staring thoughtfully at the distant Navy ships anchored proudly in Crescent Bay. Memories flooded him: discipline, sacrifice, honor, values ingrained during his years of military service. He straightened his posture instinctively, finding strength in his past. His Navy training taught him patience under fire, precision amidst chaos, skills he desperately needed now. Impulsive revenge would achieve nothing but short-lived satisfaction. True justice required careful strategy and flawless execution. "Commander Monroe?" A respectful voice startled him from his contemplation. Lucas turned slowly, recognizing Ava Harper, the town's sharpest detective. She approached calmly, hands tucked casually into her jacket pockets. "I didn't expect to see you here so early," she remarked with gentle curiosity. "Couldn't sleep," Lucas answered honestly, meeting her steady gaze. "Thinking about loyalty, trust, things you believe are unbreakable until they shatter completely." Ava nodded, sensing hidden weight behind his words. "If there's something troubling you, Lucas, remember, I'm here." Lucas studied her briefly, measuring her sincerity carefully before replying. "Maybe someday soon. Right now, I just need clarity." "Clarity comes when emotions fade," Ava advised gently, her eyes sympathetic yet sharp. "Don't rush decisions that can't be undone." Lucas smiled faintly. Her words resonated deeply. He watched her leave, resolve hardening inside him. Ava's advice reinforced his conviction: justice required patience. Lucas walked away determined, embracing Navy discipline once more. Clear-headed, methodical, unyielding. Lucas returned home, his footsteps echoing quietly across polished wood floors. Danielle's laughter drifted from the living room, making his jaw tighten reflexively. Masking his true feelings, he walked in casually, greeted by the sight of Oliver comfortably seated beside Danielle, sipping coffee as if the home belonged to him. "Lucas," Oliver said cheerfully, rising smoothly and extending his hand. "Glad you're here. Danielle and I were discussing the upcoming fundraiser." Lucas shook Oliver's hand firmly, suppressing disgust. "Fundraiser?" "Yes," Danielle added quickly, voice overly cheerful. "Oliver suggested raising funds for veterans, honoring heroes like you." The hypocrisy nearly broke Lucas's composure, but he smiled politely. "Very thoughtful, Oliver." Oliver nodded smugly, completely oblivious to Lucas's simmering fury. "We owe men like you everything." Lucas felt a cold satisfaction knowing Oliver's words would soon haunt him. He carefully observed their subtle interactions, how Danielle leaned slightly toward Oliver, how Oliver touched her elbow lightly. Small details screaming betrayal. "I appreciate your dedication," Lucas replied calmly, deliberately holding Oliver's gaze. "Men like you make all the difference." Danielle smiled nervously, sensing underlying tension. Oliver's arrogance blinded him, but Danielle seemed momentarily uncertain. Lucas took silent note. Their trust in each other was fragile, exploitable. After Oliver left, Danielle approached Lucas cautiously, searching his expression. "Lucas, are you okay?" Lucas gently touched her cheek, eyes cold beneath a practiced warmth. "Never better, sweetheart. Just thinking about loyalty, what it truly means to be a husband." Danielle shivered slightly under his intense gaze, unaware she stood at the edge of her downfall. Lucas smiled softly, determined to make her betrayal unforgettable. Moonlight spilled through the blinds as Lucas sat alone in his dimly lit study, documents spread meticulously across his desk. His pulse quickened as he examined each bank statement, transaction after transaction highlighting Danielle's secret betrayal. She'd stolen more than his trust. She'd carefully siphoned away his future. He leaned back, eyes closed, fists trembling slightly. Every new revelation deepened the sting of her deceit. But Lucas forced himself to breathe steadily, his Navy training urging calm even now. Rage simmered beneath his skin, sharp and controlled, each heartbeat fueling his resolve. Suddenly, footsteps sounded softly outside his door. Lucas swiftly swept the papers out of sight, maintaining his casual composure as Danielle appeared in the doorway. "You're still awake?" she asked, her voice deceptively soft. "Couldn't sleep," Lucas replied coolly, watching her closely. Her fingers twisted nervously in her nightgown, a subtle tell he'd missed before. Danielle stepped closer, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. Her touch now felt icy, manipulative. "Lucas, talk to me. I feel you slipping away." He turned slowly, his eyes sharp yet unreadable. "Maybe I'm finally seeing clearly." She flinched slightly, confusion clouding her face. Lucas's gaze bore into hers, challenging her silently to confess. But Danielle stepped back, pulling away from confrontation. "Get some sleep, Lucas," she whispered, retreating quickly. Alone again, Lucas spread the documents back out, determination hardening in his eyes. Danielle's betrayal went deeper than he'd imagined, and now he had undeniable proof. Days passed slowly, each one intensifying Lucas's silent fury. Danielle moved through their home with false confidence, believing her secrets remained hidden. But Lucas observed her carefully, noting every hurried whisper, every nervous glance at her phone. One afternoon, Lucas followed her quietly into the upscale Crescent Bay Hotel, his heartbeat quickening with every calculated step. Hidden behind a newspaper in the lobby, he watched Danielle discreetly meet Oliver at the hotel's bar, their intimacy shockingly open. Lucas's stomach twisted bitterly. Danielle's smile, the one he'd fallen in love with, now gleamed deceitfully toward another man. Anger surged, but Lucas clenched his jaw tightly, reminding himself patience was his strongest weapon. As Oliver placed his hand lightly over Danielle's, Lucas snapped a discreet photo, storing another devastating piece of evidence. Then Oliver leaned close, whispering something that made Danielle laugh lightly, her betrayal echoing clearly through the quiet bar. Lucas stood slowly, leaving before the urge to confront them overwhelmed his patience. Outside, cold rain poured relentlessly, soaking him through, but Lucas barely noticed. The storm raging within him drowned out everything else. He steadied himself, reminding himself that impulsive vengeance wouldn't satisfy him fully. Danielle deserved to feel the full weight of her betrayal, not quickly, but slowly, completely. Lucas smiled bitterly, the pain sharpening into cold resolve. Danielle was still his wife, but her freedom, her safety, and her happiness were now at his mercy, and soon she'd know exactly what that meant. Lucas worked silently in his home office late into the evening, carefully compiling evidence of Danielle and Oliver's affair into a secure digital file. His patience had transformed his fury into precise focus. Every piece of evidence a sharpened blade. A gentle knock at his door startled him. He swiftly minimized the files as Danielle entered quietly, her face pale, eyes restless. "Lucas, we need to talk," she whispered hesitantly, a tremor in her voice. "About?" he asked calmly, forcing a casual smile despite the bitterness in his chest. She hesitated, eyes shifting anxiously. "About us. I feel distant from you." Lucas stood slowly, approaching her with careful, deliberate steps. Danielle backed up slightly, sensing an intensity she'd never seen before. "Do you really want honesty, Danielle?" Lucas asked, his voice dangerously quiet. She swallowed nervously, avoiding his penetrating gaze. "Of course. I just want things between us to feel normal again." Lucas gently brushed a stray hair behind her ear, watching her flinch subtly. "Normal." Interesting choice of words. Her breath caught, fear flickering momentarily behind her carefully guarded expression. Lucas leaned closer, his voice a whisper, both soft and threatening. "Tell me, Danielle, are you sure honesty is something you're ready for?" Danielle took a step back, startled by his controlled rage hidden beneath a chilling smile. "Lucas, you're frightening me." Lucas eased back calmly, reclaiming his gentle facade. "No need to be frightened, darling. Not yet." She fled quickly, leaving Lucas alone, eyes cold with satisfaction. Her fear meant his careful plan was working perfectly. Soon, Danielle's entire world would collapse, and Lucas would savor every moment. Lucas walked calmly into the Crescent Bay police station, nodding courteously to the familiar faces of local officers. His heart remained steady, his expression carefully neutral. Detective Ava Harper glanced up from her paperwork, noting his quiet presence. "Commander Monroe, good to see you again," Ava greeted warmly, though her eyes studied him with quiet intensity. "How can I help?" Lucas leaned slightly against her desk, voice low and steady. "I need advice, Ava. Hypothetically, if someone discovered something disturbing, sensitive even, what would be their best course of action?" She hesitated briefly, gauging the seriousness beneath his carefully measured tone. "Lucas, that would depend greatly on what exactly was discovered." "Betrayal," Lucas replied calmly, eyes narrowing subtly. "The kind that ruins lives." Ava considered his words carefully, leaning forward confidentially. "Evidence. Indisputable, irrefutable evidence. Gather it quietly, carefully. Make sure your case is solid, then strike when they least expect it." Lucas nodded slowly, satisfied. Ava was intelligent, trustworthy, and direct, exactly the ally he needed. "Thank you, Ava. I'll keep that in mind." As he left, Lucas felt her gaze follow him, intrigued yet respectfully distant. She suspected something deeper, but trusted him enough not to push yet. Stepping outside, Lucas breathed deeply, feeling a renewed sense of clarity. His web was tightening around Danielle, and now he had the perfect ally to ensure no one escaped justice. The quiet town buzzed suddenly with disturbing news. Oliver Grayson had mysteriously disappeared. The police launched an immediate investigation, suspicions running high. Lucas stood calmly by his living room window, sipping coffee and observing the commotion with practiced detachment. Danielle paced frantically nearby, eyes wide with panic. "Lucas, Oliver wouldn't just vanish. Something terrible must have happened." "Perhaps," Lucas replied quietly, his tone deliberately neutral. He watched her carefully, savoring the fear etched into her face. Danielle turned sharply, suspicion flashing in her eyes momentarily. "Why aren't you concerned?" Lucas tilted his head slightly, meeting her gaze coolly. Should I be, Danielle? She hesitated, swallowing visibly, uncertain now. I don't know. He's our friend. Lucas moved closer, voice calm but chillingly precise. Was he really? Danielle stepped back instinctively, panic sharpening her expression. Lucas maintained his composure, masking the satisfaction of seeing her confidence shatter. You're hiding something, she accused weakly, eyes darting away nervously. Lucas smiled faintly, allowing silence to heighten her anxiety. Interesting accusation. As Danielle fled the room, Lucas's phone buzzed softly. A message from Ava Harper. Oliver's disappearance has raised suspicion. Be careful. Lucas exhaled slowly, knowing he'd executed the perfect move. He hadn't harmed Oliver, but now Danielle believed him capable, and that fear would drive her into making costly mistakes. Days turned into tense weeks, the investigation into Oliver's disappearance remaining inconclusive. Lucas noticed Danielle becoming increasingly unstable, paranoid, restless, vulnerable. Each passing day gave Lucas greater control over their psychological battle, Danielle unknowingly trapped in a game she could never win. One evening, Lucas returned home to find Danielle sitting alone in darkness, visibly shaken. He switched on a lamp, calmly observing her trembling hands. Something bothering you? He asked softly, voice dripping with subtle mockery. Danielle's eyes lifted slowly, red-rimmed with sleeplessness. Lucas, I feel like I'm losing my mind. Nothing feels right anymore. He approached calmly, kneeling beside her, his voice gentle yet coldly precise. Perhaps it's guilt. Secrets have a way of eroding your sanity. She shuddered, pulling away sharply, panic flooding her expression. What are you implying? Lucas leaned in closer, eyes locked onto hers. You betrayed me, Danielle. You thought you could steal from me, ruin my life, and escape unscathed. But now you're realizing something vital. She held her breath, visibly terrified yet unable to break his intense stare. And what's that? He stood slowly, towering over her, calm and unyielding. Actions have consequences. Lucas walked away, leaving her alone, trembling and broken. He knew Danielle's fear would unravel her completely. Her paranoia would soon lead to her downfall, and he would patiently watch as she destroyed herself. Lucas watched patiently as Danielle's paranoia deepened, her facade cracking further every day. She constantly checked her phone, startled at every sound, each creak of the old house sending chills down her spine. It was poetic justice, a cruel reversal of her betrayal. But Lucas knew revenge required more than fear. It required her total destruction. One night, Danielle invited several influential community members over for dinner, desperately attempting to rebuild her dwindling social confidence. Lucas quietly observed from across the dining table, amused by her forced laughter and nervous glances. I must say, Councilman Richard Howard smiled warmly, unaware of the tension beneath the polite surface. Danielle, you're fortunate to have Lucas. Such unwavering support, even during Oliver's investigation. Danielle froze momentarily, eyes flickering to Lucas with barely concealed panic. Lucas smiled calmly, lifting his glass in silent acknowledgement. Marriage demands trust, Councilman Howard. Without it, we'd have nothing. Danielle's fingers tightened around her glass, knuckles whitening. Lucas relished her discomfort, leaning forward subtly. Don't you agree, Danielle? She forced a weak smile, voice strained. Absolutely. Lucas felt satisfaction deep in his chest. Her discomfort was a small taste of his revenge. As the guests departed, Danielle collapsed on the couch, visibly shaken. Lucas approached slowly, voice gentle but sharp as a blade. Keeping secrets is exhausting, isn't it, Danielle? She stared helplessly at him, pleading silently for mercy. Lucas turned away without another word, knowing her nightmare had only just begun. A storm battered Crescent Bay, winds howling furiously against windows as Lucas carefully reviewed surveillance footage he discreetly installed. The screen illuminated his face with cold precision. Danielle's every whispered phone call, every anxious secret was now captured clearly, undeniable proof of her web of lies. Danielle entered the room quietly, startled by Lucas's presence. He smoothly minimized the window, swiveling to face her. Can't sleep again? She hesitated briefly, biting her lip nervously. Lucas, something's wrong. Someone's watching me. I can feel it. Guilt has eyes everywhere, Lucas replied quietly, his tone darkly ironic. What secrets haunt you, Danielle? She stepped back defensively, eyes wide. I don't know what you're talking about. Lucas rose calmly, walking toward her deliberately. Danielle retreated, her back pressed against the wall, breathing shallow and rapid. Lucas leaned close, his voice dangerously soft. Your lies are unraveling. And trust me, the truth is far worse than your fears. Danielle shivered visibly, tears forming. Lucas turned away, leaving her trembling in the dark. The truth was his weapon, and soon the world would witness her destruction. Lucas smiled bitterly, knowing Danielle's lies were her greatest enemy, and he controlled their revelation. Lucas stood quietly at the edge of a crowded charity gala, anticipation humming through his veins. Danielle moved nervously among guests, her desperate attempts at charm faltering under suspicious glances. Rumors of Oliver's disappearance had begun to circulate publicly, staining her carefully curated image. Detective Ava Harper approached Lucas discreetly, handing him an envelope with subtle precision. Everything's ready. It's your move. Lucas nodded, his pulse quickening slightly. He took the microphone calmly, commanding the attention of everyone in the ballroom. Danielle's face drained of color instantly, sensing danger. Friends, Lucas began, voice steady and powerful. Tonight, we gather for charity, a noble cause. But I regret to announce, there is betrayal among us. Danielle's eyes widened in horror as Lucas projected undeniable evidence of her affair with Oliver onto the large screens behind him. Gasps filled the room. Whispers erupted immediately. Danielle stumbled backward, mortified. Lucas continued mercilessly, his tone controlled yet brutal. This is Danielle Monroe's truth. Lies, betrayal, greed. Tonight, justice begins. Danielle fled, humiliated and exposed. Lucas stepped down, meeting Ava's approving gaze. His revenge was unfolding perfectly, and Danielle's destruction had only just started. Lucas stood silently near the window of his study, morning sunlight casting stark shadows across his face. Outside, reporters crowded the gates of their home, microphones extended, cameras flashing impatiently. Overnight, Danielle had become Crescent Bay's most scandalous headline. But Lucas knew humiliation alone wasn't enough. True revenge required lasting, irreparable damage. Turning to his desk, he opened a series of documents meticulously compiled over weeks. Danielle's financial records lay exposed, secret offshore accounts, fraudulent transactions siphoning money from charities she'd publicly championed. The depth of her greed was staggering, almost impressive in its ruthless calculation. A knock at the door startled him slightly, pulling him back from dark satisfaction. Detective Ava Harper stepped in cautiously, closing the door behind her. Her expression was both sympathetic and sharp. Lucas, things are escalating fast, Ava said softly. We've uncovered transactions directly connecting Danielle to Oliver's criminal dealings. She's facing serious charges. Lucas nodded calmly. I suspected as much. Danielle never understood boundaries, not emotionally, not financially. Ava regarded him carefully, admiration flickering briefly in her eyes. Your patience is remarkable. Most people would have broken by now. Revenge is easy, Lucas replied thoughtfully, voice steady. Justice is harder. Danielle deserves more than quick retribution. She deserves to lose everything. Ava hesitated, stepping closer. Lucas, be careful. People like Danielle won't go down quietly. He turned back toward the window, calmly watching reporters shout questions at Danielle as she tried desperately to escape their scrutiny. Her panic was deeply satisfying, yet Lucas felt no remorse. I'm prepared, Ava. Danielle played with fire, now she'll burn in it. Ava left quietly, sensing Lucas's unwavering resolve. Alone again, Lucas calmly finalized the transfer of evidence to authorities. Danielle's empire would crumble, $1 at a time, exactly as he intended. Lucas calmly entered the courtroom, feeling hundreds of eyes follow him curiously. Danielle sat stiffly beside her attorney, visibly shaken, makeup barely concealing her exhaustion. Lucas took his seat quietly, deliberately close enough for Danielle to sense his presence. Throughout the proceedings, he carefully maintained his composure, providing detailed testimony supported by irrefutable evidence. Danielle's lawyer tried desperately to cast doubt, but Lucas's careful preparation left no room for escape. Danielle's confidence visibly drained as each lie she'd told crumbled under relentless questioning. At recess, Lucas stepped outside into the courthouse hallway, breathing deeply. Danielle approached cautiously, eyes pleading. "Lucas, please. We can fix this privately. Don't destroy us completely." Lucas smiled coldly, his voice deceptively gentle. "Us? You destroyed us long ago. I'm merely finishing what you started." Her eyes filled with desperation, trembling as she reached for him. Lucas stepped back quickly, voice sharper. "Don't touch me. Your deception ends today." Danielle recoiled as if struck, eyes flickering with hatred. "You think you've won, Lucas? I'll never forget this." "Good," Lucas replied calmly, unshaken. "Neither will I." He walked away slowly, leaving Danielle alone, her desperation turning rapidly to helpless fury. Lucas knew her bravado was meaningless. Her deception had finally caught up to her, and she could no longer outrun justice. Days passed rapidly, Danielle's carefully constructed life unraveling under relentless scrutiny. Lucas quietly observed from a distance as her closest allies distanced themselves, leaving her isolated. Her desperation intensified, fueling reckless mistakes. Lucas sat quietly at his desk when a sudden commotion downstairs startled him. Descending quickly, he found Danielle frantically tearing apart the living room, searching desperately through drawers, papers scattered chaotically across the floor. "What are you looking for?" Lucas asked calmly from the doorway, his voice detached, almost amused. She spun around wildly, eyes bloodshot and frantic. "My documents." "Lucas, you took them, didn't you?" Lucas regarded her coolly, stepping forward slowly. "Which documents exactly? The ones proving your financial crimes or your affair?" Danielle lunged toward him, voice breaking. "You destroyed everything." "No, Danielle," Lucas replied quietly, voice dangerously soft. "You destroyed it yourself." Her rage dissolved into sobbing despair. Lucas remained unmoved, watching her break down with cold satisfaction. He carefully orchestrated her unraveling, piece by piece. Danielle now understood her life was no longer hers to control. Lucas left her sobbing helplessly, walking calmly away from the chaos she created. Danielle's unraveling was nearly complete, and he would calmly watch until nothing remained. Lucas adjusted his tie slowly, studying his reflection in the full-length mirror. Tonight's gala was more than just another public event. It marked Danielle's final, undeniable exposure before the entire Crescent Bay community. Lucas felt neither anxiety nor regret, only a cold, satisfying anticipation. The betrayal she'd carefully hidden would finally be dragged fully into the harsh glare of public scrutiny. The grand ballroom was packed, murmurs of speculation buzzing quietly among the elegant attendees. Lucas entered calmly, instantly feeling the shift in attention toward him. Eyes widened, whispers deepened, yet he met each glance with unshakable composure. Tonight, he controlled the narrative. Danielle stood nervously near the stage, attempting to maintain her diminishing dignity. Lucas approached smoothly, stopping close enough to ensure everyone nearby could hear their conversation clearly. "Lucas," Danielle hissed quietly, her eyes flashing panic and rage simultaneously. "Don't do this, not here." Lucas tilted his head slightly, feigning confusion. "Do what, Danielle? Expose the truth you tried so desperately to bury?" Her face reddened visibly, voice quivering. "Please, not publicly. We can handle this privately." Lucas leaned in, his voice clear, firm, and carrying sharply through the crowd. "No more lies. You betrayed me publicly, so now you'll face justice the same way." Before she could respond, Lucas stepped confidently onto the stage, addressing the gathered crowd. A silence settled instantly, the tension electric. "My friends," Lucas began calmly, voice steady and powerful. "For months, Danielle has deceived you all. Financial fraud, betrayal, deceit. Tonight, you deserve the truth." Screens around the room illuminated suddenly, showcasing undeniable evidence of Danielle's extensive fraud, her affair with Oliver, and the financial devastation she'd caused. Gasps rippled through the crowd, heads turning toward Danielle with shock and outrage. She stood frozen, humiliation etched across her face, utterly helpless. Lucas continued mercilessly. Danielle Monroe exploited your trust, your charity, and worst of all, your friendship. Tonight, that ends. Lucas stepped down calmly as chaos erupted around Danielle. He watched quietly, satisfied, knowing she'd never escape the ruin she had created. In the days following the gala, Crescent Bay buzzed relentlessly with scandal. Danielle's fall from grace dominated every headline, her humiliation absolute and irreversible. Lucas maintained a careful public silence, allowing the media to tear apart every aspect of Danielle's life without interruption. One afternoon, Lucas sat quietly at a cafe, reading the newspaper when Ava Harper joined him, her expression carefully neutral. She handed him a document discreetly. "The district attorney has officially charged Danielle," Ava stated simply. "It's severe. Financial fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy. Her humiliation is complete." Lucas glanced briefly at the charges, calmly nodding. "Justice served." Ava studied him thoughtfully. "Most people enjoy revenge briefly, then regret sets in. But you seem entirely at peace." Lucas smiled faintly, sipping his coffee slowly. This was never purely revenge. Danielle's humiliation is justice, justice she brought upon herself. Suddenly, across the street, Danielle appeared, flanked by reporters hounding her every step. Her expression was weary, defeated, hopelessly broken. Lucas watched her without sympathy, knowing every ounce of humiliation was richly deserved. As Danielle noticed him, she hesitated, eyes filling momentarily with raw anguish. Lucas calmly raised his coffee cup in subtle acknowledgement, watching her crumble visibly. He felt neither joy nor guilt, only quiet satisfaction. He turned back toward Ava, voice calm yet firm. Her humiliation isn't just about punishment. It's protection, ensuring she never harms anyone again. Ava nodded slowly, understanding. Lucas had accomplished exactly what he intended. Danielle's humiliation was public, absolute, and forever unerasable. Weeks stretched quietly into months, the initial chaos settling into a quiet, tense aftermath. Danielle faced her impending trial isolated and desperate, her allies long abandoned, her arrogance shattered. Yet Lucas remained patient, knowing the final stroke of justice required perfect timing. He spent countless evenings calmly reviewing each piece of evidence, ensuring his case against Danielle was airtight. Ava visited regularly, continually impressed by Lucas's controlled, patient dedication. "Lucas, aren't you exhausted?" Ava asked one evening, observing the meticulous files spread across his desk. "You've proven your point already." Lucas shook his head slowly, eyes focused with steady determination. "Justice isn't rushed, Ava. True justice demands patience. You really don't doubt yourself?" Ava pressed gently. Lucas met her gaze calmly. Danielle's arrogance blinded her. "Ava, I won't make the same mistake. Patience is my greatest advantage." As the trial date approached, Lucas carefully controlled every detail, ensuring Danielle faced consequences far beyond public humiliation. His patience wasn't about restraint, it was precision. Danielle's downfall required methodical, calculated steps, and Lucas was prepared to wait as long as necessary. One evening, Lucas stood alone on the balcony overlooking the tranquil bay. Waves crashed softly below, a cool breeze brushing past. Patience, he thought quietly, had always guided him, through storms at sea and through betrayal at home. He knew Danielle's patience had run dry long ago, replaced by desperation and panic. But Lucas was unshakable, confident his calm, methodical patience would deliver justice at precisely the right moment, no sooner, no later. He inhaled deeply, serene yet resolute. Danielle's reckoning was near, and Lucas would patiently savor every moment until the very end. I hope you've all subscribed by now. Your support means the world. Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments. Let me know that from where you are listening to my stories. I'm excited to hear your feedback and engage with you all. Keep the positivity coming. The courtroom buzzed quietly as Lucas sat confidently beside Ava Harper. Today marked another crucial phase of Danielle's unraveling. Her allies now turned against her, revealing the depths of her corruption. Lucas had carefully nurtured alliances behind the scenes, ensuring Danielle had no avenue left to escape. Councilman Richard Howard took the stand, his expression stern and resolute. Lucas watched intently as the councilman detailed Danielle's secret deals, fraudulent charities, and extensive manipulations. Every revelation tightened the noose further around Danielle's neck. Danielle sat rigidly, visibly crumbling with every accusation. Her attorney struggled helplessly to counter the damage, but the testimony was devastatingly precise. Lucas felt Ava's approving glance, but kept his attention focused forward, calm and controlled. When Richard Howard finished, their eyes met briefly, exchanging a subtle nod, an acknowledgement of Lucas's meticulous planning. "Lucas," Ava whispered approvingly, "your alliances are paying off." Lucas smiled faintly. Danielle trusted no one fully, yet she relied on everyone's silence. Her downfall was believing others were as corrupt as she is. Danielle's gaze suddenly locked onto Lucas, desperation and fury clashing within her eyes. Lucas calmly returned her stare, unmoved and unyielding. She finally understood. He hadn't simply exposed her. He'd systematically dismantled her entire network of influence. As the courtroom cleared, Lucas quietly thanked Richard. The councilman shook Lucas's hand firmly. "Justice owes you greatly, Lucas." "Justice only required courage," Lucas replied steadily. "You provided that." Lucas walked away satisfied, knowing his alliances had successfully isolated Danielle completely. Now alone, she had nowhere left to hide. Lucas stood quietly inside Ava Harper's office, carefully reviewing evidence spread across her desk. The documents revealed something even darker than he'd anticipated. Danielle's betrayal extended far beyond their personal lives, infecting Crescent Bay's entire community. "Ava," Lucas began softly, voice tight with controlled anger, "this corruption reaches deeper than just Danielle. Half the city council, several charities, she poisoned everything." Ava nodded gravely. "I'm serious. It's systemic, Lucas. Danielle and Oliver were only the surface. They exploited your presumed death to cover their schemes, and no one suspected because they trusted Danielle implicitly." Lucas exhaled slowly, cold fury simmering. "I never imagined she could cause this much damage." "We can fix it," Ava urged gently. "You've done what nobody else could. You exposed the rot at the core. Now, we eliminate it completely." Lucas stood taller, resolve sharpening his features. "Then let's finish this." Together, Lucas and Ava meticulously prepared their evidence, carefully strategizing to ensure the corruption would collapse publicly, unmistakably. Lucas refused shortcuts or compromise. The city deserved absolute justice, not merely vengeance. By morning, they presented overwhelming evidence to trusted officials outside the corrupted circle. Each document, each transaction, each betrayal laid bare. Lucas felt grim satisfaction knowing Danielle's personal downfall had become something larger, more meaningful, a chance for genuine change. He stepped outside Ava's office into morning sunlight, determined and unshakable. Danielle's corruption would burn publicly, and from its ashes, Crescent Bay would rebuild stronger, cleaner. Lucas felt justice finally aligning, not just personal revenge, but true societal cleansing. The trial reached its peak intensity as Lucas took the stand once more, carrying the full weight of irrefutable evidence carefully compiled. The courtroom fell silent, anticipation thick in the air. Danielle stared numbly, her confidence utterly broken. Lucas calmly presented each document, photo, and financial record methodically. His voice remained steady, his eyes never wavering from the jury. Every word landed precisely, leaving no room for doubt or escape. Danielle Monroe betrayed not just me, but every single person who trusted her, Lucas declared firmly. Her greed knew no bounds. The evidence speaks clearly. Financial fraud, embezzlement, manipulation, her actions destroyed lives. He paused deliberately, letting the courtroom absorb the magnitude of Danielle's crimes. Today, justice demands accountability, not revenge, but undeniable truth. Danielle's attorney attempted feebly to challenge Lucas's testimony, but each argument crumbled helplessly against Lucas's meticulously prepared evidence. Ava Harper sat quietly, pride evident in her subtle nod of approval. As Lucas stepped down, Danielle's shoulders slumped, hopelessly defeated. Lucas watched him passively, feeling neither joy nor remorse, only calm satisfaction. He'd patiently gathered every piece of evidence, refusing haste or shortcuts, knowing Danielle's guilt must be indisputable. Outside the courthouse afterward, Lucas breathed deeply, tension easing slightly from his shoulders. Ava approached quietly, respect clear in her eyes. "Lucas, your patience finally paid off." "No jury on earth could doubt that evidence," Ava remarked softly. Lucas nodded slowly, gaze fixed firmly forward. "Evidence was always my greatest weapon, Ava." Danielle believed lies protected her, but ultimately, they ensured her destruction. He walked away confidently, knowing justice now lay securely in the jury's hands, and Danielle's downfall was absolute. Lucas quietly sipped his coffee at a corner table in Crescent Bay's busiest cafe, carefully watching Danielle from behind dark sunglasses. She appeared tense, glancing repeatedly at her phone, her face pale and drawn. Lucas had strategically released small hints to the media, baiting Danielle into desperation. He knew fear would force her into mistakes she otherwise wouldn't make. Moments later, Danielle stood abruptly, knocking her chair loudly to the floor, startling nearby patrons. Lucas calmly observed her panic, feeling grim satisfaction. She stormed toward him, her voice a harsh whisper. "What game are you playing, Lucas? Haven't you destroyed me enough?" Lucas smiled faintly, slowly removing his sunglasses to meet her furious gaze directly. "Funny, weren't you the one who started playing games first?" She flinched visibly, leaning closer with barely restrained rage. "Stop tormenting me. What more could you possibly want?" Lucas stood slowly, his calm height towering over her trembling form. "Everything you stole from me, Danielle. Peace, dignity, trust. You baited me into believing your lies. Now, you're trapped in mine." Danielle backed away slowly, confusion mingling with fear. Lucas calmly walked past her, leaving her frozen, utterly unnerved. Her desperation made her reckless, and reckless people expose themselves clearly. Outside, Lucas inhaled sharply, feeling no remorse, only ruthless clarity. Danielle's fear was a powerful tool, and soon her own panic would finish what Lucas had carefully begun. Lucas entered Crescent Bay's annual charity gala with quiet confidence, well aware every eye was trained on him. Tonight marked a turning point. Danielle, emboldened by false hope, had decided to publicly defend herself. Lucas had anticipated her renewed arrogance. Her confidence was exactly what he needed. Danielle stood center stage, her voice deceptively steady, portraying herself as a victim. Lucas watched calmly, noting how effortlessly she slipped back into manipulation. She smiled graciously, attempting charm, her lies carefully rehearsed. Lucas waited patiently, allowing Danielle's false confidence to build. Finally, he stepped forward smoothly, his presence instantly quieting the room. Danielle's story is compelling. Lucas began gently, eyes steady, voice clear. But compelling lies remain lies. The audience murmured restlessly as Lucas revealed new evidence. Documents proving Danielle had recently attempted bribery to silence witnesses. Her confident facade crumbled visibly, replaced by helpless humiliation. Danielle stammered desperately, "This isn't true. I've done nothing wrong." Lucas calmly held her frantic gaze. Confidence in deception only works until someone exposes the truth. She rushed from the stage, humiliated and defeated, leaving stunned silence behind. Lucas calmly exited, feeling grim satisfaction. Danielle's confidence was now permanently shattered, her credibility destroyed forever. Lucas stood quietly at the edge of Crescent Bay's town square, waiting as hundreds gathered for the city's annual celebration. Today's event held special significance. Danielle's final reckoning would unfold publicly, undeniably. in full view of the entire community. Detective Ava Harper approached Lucas discreetly. "Everything's ready. Danielle doesn't suspect a thing." Lucas nodded calmly, watching as Danielle confidently stepped onto the platform, unaware she stood on the brink of complete ruin. As she began her speech, Lucas signaled Ava subtly. Immediately, screens around the square flashed to life, broadcasting unmistakable evidence of Danielle's extensive corruption, financial fraud, and betrayal. Gasps echoed through the stunned crowd. Danielle froze mid-sentence, her carefully crafted public image collapsing in seconds. Lucas walked forward deliberately, calmly addressing the shocked community. "Danielle betrayed our trust, stole from our charities, and destroyed lives. Today, justice prevails." Danielle stumbled backward, horror and humiliation overwhelming her. The crowd erupted in outrage, their voices a chorus of condemnation. Lucas felt quiet satisfaction. Her downfall wasn't personal vengeance, it was the community reclaiming its dignity. Lucas calmly stepped back, watching Danielle escorted away by authorities. Her event, her stage, had become the platform of her complete destruction. Lucas breathed deeply, finally feeling closure. Danielle's end had arrived, publicly, irrevocably, exactly as planned. Lucas sat silently at the back of the crowded courtroom, his calm gaze fixed firmly on Danielle as she faced the jury. Her confident facade had vanished entirely. All that remained was fear, desperation, and humiliation. Lucas felt no joy, only the steady satisfaction of witnessing justice unfold exactly as planned. The prosecutor carefully presented the evidence Lucas had painstakingly gathered, methodically dismantling every one of Danielle's lies. Each revelation landed like a physical blow, the jury's expressions hardening further with every new detail. Danielle's lawyer stood weakly, trying in vain to salvage her shattered reputation. But it was pointless. The damage was overwhelming, undeniable, and entirely her own doing. As the prosecutor delivered closing arguments, Danielle's eyes searched desperately through the crowd, locking onto Lucas's calm, steady gaze. She visibly trembled, silently begging him for mercy. Lucas's expression remained unwavering. Mercy was no longer his to give. Her exposure wasn't simply his revenge, it was the inevitable consequence of her betrayal. When the jury filed out to deliberate, Ava Harper quietly approached Lucas, her voice low but filled with admiration. "Lucas, your patience finally paid off. Danielle's exposure is total. She'll never recover from this." Lucas nodded slowly, breathing steadily. "It's exactly as she deserves." Exposure was always more powerful than revenge. Hours later, the jury returned swiftly, their verdict resounding clearly through the courtroom. Guilty. Danielle's shoulders slumped hopelessly. Lucas quietly stood, feeling neither pleasure nor guilt, only quiet satisfaction. Justice had finally exposed Danielle completely. Danielle's sentencing day arrived swiftly, drawing a massive crowd eager to witness her final collapse. Lucas sat quietly near the front, expression carefully neutral, feeling no hesitation or doubt. Danielle's downfall wasn't just personal, it represented justice for an entire community. When Danielle entered, she appeared hollow, defeated. Her eyes met Lucas's briefly, desperation giving way to resignation. She knew she'd lost completely. The judge's voice resonated clearly, delivering a sentence severe enough to guarantee Danielle's total collapse. Financial restitution, significant prison time, permanent disgrace, justice without compromise. Danielle stared blankly ahead, trembling, her entire world crumbling visibly before everyone. Lucas watched calmly, knowing every consequence was fair and necessary. Danielle's collapse was absolute, undeniable, and entirely deserved. Outside the courthouse afterward, reporters surrounded Lucas, microphones thrust forward eagerly. He spoke calmly, his voice steady and powerful. "Today, corruption and betrayal lost. Danielle's collapse means justice prevailed. Let this serve as a lesson. Lies always unravel, and truth always wins." He walked away quietly, feeling closure deep within. Danielle's empire had finally collapsed, justice fully served. Lucas felt neither regret nor triumph, only relief that Crescent Bay was finally free from her poison. Days passed into weeks, and Crescent Bay slowly healed. Danielle's consequences resonated deeply throughout the community. Financial restitution restored stolen funds, criminal sentences dismantled corrupt networks, and trust gradually returned. Lucas quietly supported community efforts, attending events aimed at rebuilding trust. He spoke rarely but effectively, always reminding people that Danielle's consequences represented not vengeance, but justice and redemption. One quiet afternoon, Lucas visited the memorial park dedicated to veterans. Detective Ava Harper approached silently, standing beside him, her expression respectful yet curious. "Lucas, Crescent Bay owes you greatly," Ava said softly. "You delivered justice nobody else could." Lucas shook his head gently. "Danielle's consequences weren't my doing, Ava, they were hers. Betrayal always leads to consequences. I simply ensured those consequences became undeniable." Ava smiled thoughtfully. "You know, most people seek revenge. You chose justice instead. That difference changed everything." Lucas smiled faintly, gazing across the peaceful park. "Revenge is momentary. Justice endures. Danielle faces lifelong consequences because her betrayal had lifelong impact." He walked slowly through the park, greeting neighbors warmly. The community regarded him with renewed respect, grateful for his courage and integrity. Danielle's consequences were painful but necessary, cleansing corruption, restoring hope. Lucas finally felt peace settling deeply within him. Danielle's betrayal had cost him dearly, but her consequences restored balance. Justice wasn't simply punishment. It rebuilt, healed, and strengthened. Lucas knew Danielle would forever face her consequences, but Crescent Bay, and Lucas himself, had already begun to thrive again. Lucas watched calmly from a distance as the moving truck pulled away from the luxurious home Danielle once called hers. Now, everything she'd stolen, every piece of her lavish life, was gone, auctioned off to repay the people she had deceived. Danielle stood alone, pale and gaunt, her belongings reduced to a single small suitcase. Lucas felt quiet satisfaction, recognizing the completeness of her downfall. Danielle turned slowly, noticing Lucas across the street. Her eyes flashed briefly with resentment, but quickly shifted to desperation. She crossed over cautiously, voice trembling. "Lucas, is this really what you wanted? For me to have nothing left?" Lucas studied her carefully, unmoved by her pitiful state. "You took everything from others without hesitation, Danielle. Your downfall is justice, not cruelty." She blinked back, tears, voice breaking. "I made mistakes, but this is unbearable." Lucas shook his head slowly. "Mistakes imply accidents. You calculated every betrayal. Your downfall is entirely your creation." Danielle lowered her eyes, unable to argue further. Lucas turned away, leaving her standing alone, completely defeated. Her downfall was absolute. No mercy, no shortcuts, no forgiveness. She was now exactly where she deserved to be. A cool breeze drifted gently through the open windows of Crescent Bay's courthouse as Lucas took his seat quietly. Today marked the final public hearing, the culmination of months of careful planning, meticulous evidence gathering, and patient strategy. Danielle's appeal had been swiftly rejected. Justice now stood firm and unshakable. When Danielle was led inside, she seemed barely recognizable, broken, drained of arrogance, her once proud posture bent with defeat. Lucas regarded her steadily, feeling no triumph, only quiet resolution. The judge's ruling was firm, definitive, leaving Danielle no room for escape or hope of redemption. Justice had spoken clearly, decisively. Lucas listened calmly, knowing his role was complete. Danielle's punishment wasn't simply personal satisfaction. It was restoration of truth, trust, and balance. As the judge declared Danielle's sentence final, murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Danielle's gaze lifted one last time, meeting Lucas's. Her eyes were empty now, resigned to justice. Lucas quietly stood, offering no words or glances as he walked out. Danielle's justice had finally arrived, and he felt genuine peace, knowing Crescent Bay would heal fully, restored by the strength of absolute justice. Months passed quietly, Crescent Bay steadily healing from the wounds Danielle had inflicted. Lucas had become a respected symbol of integrity, quietly helping the community rebuild stronger. Yet he never anticipated how swiftly karma would strike Danielle once more. News spread rapidly through town. Danielle, imprisoned and forgotten, had faced harsh rejection even among inmates, isolated and powerless. Lucas felt no joy at her continued suffering, only calm acknowledgement. Karma always balanced the scales. Detective Ava Harper visited Lucas one afternoon, concern evident in her expression. "Lucas, Danielle wants to see you. She's desperate, begging for forgiveness." Lucas paused, thoughtful, before replying steadily. "Forgiveness isn't mine to grant, Ava. Danielle chose her path. Now she must accept karma's price." Ava nodded gently, understanding his resolve. Lucas visited the quiet harbor later, watching peaceful waves roll gently toward shore. Danielle had once manipulated fate, arrogantly believing consequences could never touch her. But karma had patiently waited, and now Danielle faced its justice alone. Lucas breathed deeply, finally at ease. Karma had fulfilled its role perfectly. Danielle's own choices had determined her fate, not Lucas. He knew justice was complete, irreversible, and fair. Karma, after all, forgave no debts, and Danielle had created too many to count. Lucas stood quietly at the edge of Crescent Bay's serene shoreline, watching gentle waves lap against the sand under a twilight sky. The town behind him had finally begun healing, the scars Danielle inflicted slowly fading into distant memory. Yet Lucas understood true closure wasn't found in Danielle's punishment alone. It required something deeper, more personal. Footsteps softly approached through the sand. Ava Harper stopped beside him, her presence comforting and familiar. "You seem at peace, Lucas," Ava observed gently, her eyes searching his expression thoughtfully. Lucas nodded slowly. "For months, my entire life revolved around justice, about exposing Danielle's betrayal. Now, I finally feel closure. Not just because she's punished, but because Crescent Bay can move forward again." Ava studied him quietly, voice softening with admiration. "You've done something remarkable. Most people would have been destroyed by betrayal. But you turned pain into strength, revenge into justice." Lucas inhaled deeply, feeling calm settle deeply within him. "Danielle stole more than money or trust. She stole my sense of self. But today, standing here, I finally feel whole again. That's the closure I needed most." Ava smiled warmly. "You deserve that peace, Lucas." They stood quietly together, allowing silence and the gentle breeze to wash away the lingering remnants of pain. Lucas knew Danielle would carry the consequences of her actions forever, but he no longer carried the weight of her betrayal. His closure wasn't simply about ending Danielle's reign of deceit. It was about reclaiming his life fully. In the months that followed Danielle's sentencing, Crescent Bay gradually transformed. Lucas became a cornerstone of community rebuilding efforts, dedicating himself quietly yet tirelessly to restoring the trust Danielle had shattered. One sunny afternoon, Lucas stood on a newly built community center stage, addressing a hopeful crowd gathered in celebration. "We've rebuilt more than buildings here," Lucas stated confidently, his voice strong yet humble. "We rebuilt trust, loyalty, and integrity. Danielle's betrayal nearly destroyed this community, but together, we've risen stronger." Applause erupted warmly, genuine gratitude evident in every face. Lucas felt a rare pride, knowing he'd helped reclaim what Danielle had stolen, not through vengeance, but by healing wounds and inspiring trust. Stepping down from the stage, Lucas shook hands warmly with neighbors and friends. Ava approached, smiling knowingly. "Lucas, you rebuilt something extraordinary here, not just the town, but faith itself." Lucas nodded, feeling deep satisfaction. Betrayal breaks trust in ways few realize until it's gone. Rebuilding meant proving loyalty still matters, that integrity triumphs over deceit. Ava squeezed his arm gently. "You've given Crescent Bay hope again." That's something Danielle never understood. Lucas stood quietly, appreciating the vibrant life returning around him. Danielle's destruction had been temporary. Rebuilding trust was his legacy. Crescent Bay had risen, resilient and whole again. exactly as Lucas intended. Lucas walked slowly through Crescent Bay's Memorial Park, now a living testament to the community's resilience and strength. Plaques commemorated individuals Danielle's corruption had harmed, each serving as a solemn reminder of betrayal's devastating consequences, but also humanity's extraordinary ability to recover and thrive. Detective Ava Harper joined him silently, standing beside a new memorial honoring veterans and community leaders. Lucas's name was engraved proudly, a legacy he hadn't sought, yet quietly earned. "You've changed this town forever, Lucas." Ava spoke softly, admiration clear in her tone. "Your legacy is justice, integrity, and hope, values Danielle once tried destroying." Lucas studied the memorial thoughtfully, voice calm yet reflective. Danielle believed legacies were built on wealth and manipulation. But true legacy comes from integrity, sacrifice, and courage, values she could never grasp. Ava smiled warmly. "This community will remember you long after Danielle's betrayal fades entirely. Your legacy will inspire generations." Lucas nodded humbly, understanding the significance of what he'd accomplished. He'd started with a personal mission of justice, yet ended with a legacy that would outlive betrayal, revenge, even Danielle herself. As he walked slowly through the peaceful park, Lucas felt peace deeper than ever before. Betrayal had once defined his life, but now his legacy was defined by strength, wisdom, and hope. Danielle's corruption was defeated not by vengeance alone, but by justice and rebuilding. Proof that integrity's legacy was always stronger. Lucas stood alone on the deck of his modest boat, watching the early morning sun spill gold across Crescent Bay's tranquil waters. He'd always found peace here, but today he felt more than that. He felt strength. Not the fierce strength that fueled his revenge, but quiet, resilient strength born from surviving betrayal and reclaiming his life. Footsteps approached along the dock, and Lucas turned calmly, recognizing Ava Harper immediately. She joined him quietly, glancing out at the sunrise with gentle admiration. "You look different, Lucas, stronger." "Somehow," Ava noted softly, smiling warmly. Lucas nodded thoughtfully. "Danielle once convinced me strength meant control, dominance. But real strength comes from surviving betrayal without losing yourself. Today, standing here, I know I've truly found it." Ava studied him, eyes filled with respect. "Not everyone recovers the way you did. Some lose themselves completely. But you found strength in justice, integrity, patience. That's rare, Lucas." Lucas breathed deeply, steadying himself. "Danielle tried to break me, Ava. Instead, she forced me to become stronger. Betrayal almost destroyed me, but it ultimately made me who I am today." Ava touched his shoulder lightly. "That's strength no betrayal could ever take from you." Lucas felt warmth spread through his chest, grateful for her friendship. Danielle's betrayal had shattered his trust, but Ava reminded him strength meant learning to trust again. As sunlight warmed their faces, Lucas finally felt whole. Danielle's betrayal was behind him, strength guiding him confidently into the future. Months after Danielle's downfall, Lucas dedicated himself to quietly supporting victims of betrayal and corruption in Crescent Bay. He had become a source of hope, helping others reclaim lives stolen by deceit. Yet Lucas knew true redemption required more than just public service. It required facing the personal wounds Danielle had inflicted. One afternoon, Lucas visited the town's quiet Veterans Center. Inside, a young Navy veteran, Ryan Collins, sat isolated, staring blankly out the window. Lucas approached gently, recognizing the pain mirrored in Ryan's eyes. "You're Lucas Monroe, aren't you?" Ryan asked quietly, his voice raw with emotion. "You survived betrayal and rebuilt your life. I envy that strength." Lucas sat slowly, his voice calm yet understanding. "I didn't always have strength, Ryan. Betrayal nearly destroyed me. Redemption came from accepting pain instead of hiding from it." Ryan glanced down, struggling visibly. "I don't know how to trust again after betrayal. It feels impossible." Lucas placed a reassuring hand on Ryan's shoulder. "Redemption isn't forgetting betrayal. It's learning to live beyond it. Trust returns slowly, rebuilt through courage, patience, and honesty. Ryan met Lucas's steady gaze, hope flickering in his expression. Maybe I can find redemption, too. Lucas smiled warmly. You can. Betrayal doesn't define you. Redemption is about reclaiming who you truly are. As Lucas left later, he felt quietly fulfilled. Redemption wasn't simply recovering from betrayal. It was using that pain to guide others toward healing, strength, and hope. On a quiet evening, Lucas returned alone to the beach house he'd once shared with Danielle. The rooms were empty now, shadows stretching silently across polished floors. But Lucas felt no bitterness, only peaceful reflection. He moved slowly through familiar spaces, memories flowing gently yet clearly. Here, laughter had once echoed warmly. Later, betrayal had poisoned every moment. But now, standing quietly within those empty walls, Lucas felt neither pain nor anger, only calm acceptance. Ava Harper arrived soon after, sensing his reflective mood. She joined him quietly on the balcony, the ocean breeze whispering softly around them. It must be difficult returning here, Ava said gently, concern in her eyes. Lucas shook his head slowly. Not difficult. Necessary. Reflection shows clearly how far I've come, how betrayal shaped but never defined me. Ava smiled, relieved by his strength. Danielle's shadow doesn't haunt you anymore, does it? Lucas gazed steadily toward the ocean horizon, his voice calm yet resolute. Betrayal taught me painful lessons, but reflection taught me forgiveness, patience, strength. Danielle no longer holds power over me. As sunset painted the sky brilliant colors, Lucas felt a rare serenity. Reflection allowed him clarity. Betrayal had nearly destroyed him, but surviving it had revealed who he truly was. Danielle's betrayal was now simply a chapter in his story, no longer defining him. Reflection brought Lucas the freedom he'd long sought: peace, strength, and quiet closure. Lucas sat quietly at the edge of Crescent Bay's peaceful marina, the soft evening breeze tugging gently at his sleeves. Months had passed since Danielle's betrayal, yet each day continued bringing him a deeper sense of wisdom, a profound understanding born from pain, patience, and ultimately forgiveness. Detective Ava Harper approached softly, noticing Lucas's thoughtful expression. She paused, silently inviting him to share his reflections. People keep asking me how I survived betrayal, Lucas finally spoke, his voice calm yet thoughtful. Truthfully, it wasn't revenge that healed me, it was wisdom. Wisdom that only betrayal could teach. Ava nodded gently, encouraging him. What kind of wisdom, Lucas? He glanced at her. I steady. That trust can be rebuilt, but it's never the same, and that's okay. Wisdom is knowing betrayal doesn't diminish your worth. It only reveals the betrayer's true character. Ava smiled warmly, understanding. Your wisdom saved more than just yourself, Lucas. It inspired a community to heal. Lucas breathed deeply, appreciating her friendship deeply. Wisdom comes when pain transforms into purpose. Betrayal was devastating, but surviving it taught me strength, patience, and the true meaning of justice. As darkness slowly settled over the marina, Lucas felt contentment settle within himself. Danielle had betrayed him deeply, yet he emerged wiser, stronger, and better than before. Betrayal had nearly broken him, but wisdom ensured it never defined him. Lucas stood quietly at Crescent Bay's town square, watching as community members gathered warmly around him. Today, the town honored him publicly for his courage, integrity, and relentless pursuit of justice, qualities Danielle had once tried destroying completely. Mayor Susan Bennett stepped forward, addressing the appreciative crowd clearly. Lucas Monroe's bravery saved our community from corruption and restored our trust in each other. He reminded us that integrity and truth still matter. Cheers erupted loudly, heartfelt applause echoing warmly. Lucas stepped forward humbly, deeply moved by the community's genuine gratitude. I never expected recognition, Lucas admitted honestly, voice steady yet humble. I acted because betrayal required justice. Danielle believed betrayal made her powerful, but your courage, support, and trust proved otherwise. Crescent Bay is stronger today because of each of you. The community responded warmly, gratitude clear in their expressions. Lucas felt deeply honored, yet quietly satisfied, not by praise, but by witnessing betrayal's destructive effects finally healing completely. Ava joined him afterward, her expression proud yet gentle. Lucas, your courage didn't just save this community, it transformed it. Lucas smiled faintly, grateful. Community is about trust, integrity, and loyalty, everything Danielle failed to value. Betrayal tested us, but ultimately united us even stronger. As they walked through the celebrating crowd, Lucas finally felt peace. Danielle's betrayal had briefly shattered trust, but the community's resilience and unity proved stronger. Betrayal hadn't destroyed Crescent Bay, it had only strengthened it, revealing the true meaning of community. Lucas awoke early, walking slowly along Crescent Bay's quiet shoreline. Dawn stretched gently across the horizon, colors blending softly above calm waters. After months of turmoil, betrayal, and relentless struggle, Lucas finally recognized peace, not simply calmness, but deep emotional harmony he hadn't felt in years. He paused quietly, breathing deeply, savoring the silence. Detective Ava Harper soon joined him, sensing his newfound serenity immediately. You finally seem at peace, Lucas, Ava observed warmly. After everything Danielle put you through, you've earned this. Lucas nodded slowly, voice gentle yet confident. Betrayal robbed me of peace for so long, Ava. I mistakenly believed justice alone would restore it, but peace came from something deeper. Ava studied him curiously. What was it? Lucas smiled faintly, eyes clear and steady. Letting go, not forgetting betrayal, but releasing its hold over me. Danielle no longer defines me, Ava. I define myself now. She squeezed his shoulder gently, proud and understanding. You deserve this peace, Lucas. He stood quietly, feeling peace spread deeply through his chest, finally understanding its true meaning. Betrayal had taught him pain, patience, wisdom, but peace came when he finally forgave himself for trusting Danielle. As dawn fully broke, sunlight warming his face, Lucas knew peace was his forever now, earned through strength, patience, and the courage to finally move forward beyond betrayal. Lucas stood at the bow of his boat, gazing toward the endless horizon where the sky kissed the ocean. The waters reflected a tapestry of colors, soft oranges, purples, and blues melting together in harmony. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to think clearly about the future, not burdened by betrayal, nor driven by revenge, but filled with genuine hope. Footsteps echoed gently across the deck. Ava joined him quietly, her presence as reassuring as always. They stood silently for a moment, simply absorbing the peacefulness. Thinking about the future? Ava finally asked softly, glancing thoughtfully at Lucas. He nodded, eyes still fixed calmly ahead. Yes, it feels strange. Betrayal made me doubt I'd ever look forward to tomorrow again. But now, my future feels promising. Ava smiled gently. That's because you're finally free. Danielle controlled your past, but the future is yours alone. Lucas breathed deeply, comforted by her words. The future is about possibilities now, not pain. Danielle's betrayal no longer overshadows my choices. Ava regarded him warmly, voice filled with sincere encouragement. And what possibilities will you choose, Lucas? He smiled quietly, genuinely optimistic for the first time in years. I choose trust, courage, and hope. The future won't erase the past, but it'll certainly outshine it. They stood quietly together, the gentle ocean breeze carrying his renewed confidence toward endless horizons. Betrayal no longer defined him. Lucas Monroe's future had begun, bold, promising, and entirely his own. Months later, Lucas walked through Crescent Bay's newly rebuilt community park. Families gathered happily under warm sunlight. Children laughed, couples walked hand in hand. Life returned vibrantly. Danielle's shadow no longer lingered here. Only genuine hope remained. Detective Ava Harper approached, smiling warmly. It's amazing, isn't it? Betrayal nearly destroyed this place, but hope rebuilt it stronger. Lucas nodded quietly, feeling deeply moved. Hope is exactly what betrayal tried to steal from us. Danielle underestimated how powerful genuine hope can be. Ava glanced thoughtfully at him. Lucas, do you think people can ever fully recover from betrayal? He paused, reflecting gently. Fully recover? Perhaps not entirely. but we can heal. Hope is the reason. Betrayal scars us, but hope helps us move beyond pain. Ava smiled gently. You proved that yourself, Lucas. Lucas met her gaze warmly. Hope allowed me to trust again, myself, my community, my future. Danielle betrayed me deeply, but hope proved stronger. That's the lesson Crescent Bay learned. As they walked slowly through the lively park, Lucas finally felt deeply healed. Hope had guided him patiently through betrayal's darkest moments, finally bringing him here, whole, peaceful, optimistic again. Lucas stood at the town square, surrounded by the familiar faces of Crescent Bay residents who gathered to celebrate not just him, but the triumph of truth over deceit, justice over betrayal. The sun bathed the community warmly, illuminating smiles and heartfelt gratitude. He stepped forward, his voice steady and powerful. Friends, today isn't about me. It's about all of you. Danielle tried to break our trust, to steal our future. But look around. Betrayal failed, and we triumphed. Cheers erupted loudly, genuine joy resonating warmly through the square. Lucas continued calmly, deeply moved by the community's resilience. Betrayal taught us painful lessons, but our triumph is in unity, trust, and integrity. Today, we've rebuilt stronger, wiser, and united against deceit. Lucas paused, voice softening emotionally. Betrayal could have broken me, could have broken us all. But standing here now, our triumph is clear. We overcame pain, reclaimed our lives, and chose hope. As applause filled the air, Lucas looked directly into the camera, addressing his audience warmly. Now, I want to know from all of you. Where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. And if this story touched your heart, don't forget to like and subscribe to support our community of thriller lovers. He smiled warmly, voice filled with genuine care. We'll meet again soon with another thrilling, emotional story. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other. Stay strong, stay hopeful, and always remember, truth and justice always triumph in the end. See you next time, my friends.